Ivy sits at a table against the wall. An ice cream cone melts in front of her, but she doesn't want to eat it. Her companion, Mark, has been talking nonstop for half an hour. He's talking about his new car, or rather, about the loan for it. Ivy watches his moving lips, but doesn't hear the words. Her ears are ringing with boredom. She glances furtively at her watch. Only 40 minutes have passed. It's too early to leave. It would be impolite, but her patience is wearing thin. Mark pauses for a sip of water. Ivy sees her chance. Sorry, she says, smiling tightly. I need to call my mom. She's worried. Just a minute. She grabs her purse and phone and gets up from the table. She walks a short distance, just a few steps, to a tall artificial palm tree in the corner of the room. She turns her back to the audience. She dials her mother's number. The phone is answered immediately. Hi, Mom, Ivy whispers, covering her mouth with her hand. She looks at the wall. That's it. I can't. This is a disaster. A complete failure. Her voice is quiet but full of emotion. She doesn't see what's happening behind her. He only talks about money he doesn't have and a job he hates. She continues in a whisper. Not a single interesting question for me. Not a single joke. I've already counted the cracks in the ceiling. Save me. She listens to what her mother says and laughs quietly, bitterly. Yes, she's beautiful, of course. But that's not important, Mom. What matters is what's inside. And inside there's emptiness and boredom. Okay, I'm holding on. I'll call later, when I get some time off. She puts her phone in her purse. She takes a deep breath, preparing to return to her torment. She is completely focused on her failure. She doesn't notice the man who has stopped 2 steps away from her. He had just entered the establishment. He was wearing a perfectly tailored dark suit, sans jacket. His shirt was white, the cuffs fastened with simple black cufflinks. He walked past her, heading for a distant table where 2 serious-looking men were already waiting. But he heard her quiet, emotional whisper. He heard the words disaster and failure. He stopped and turned his head. His black eyes looked at her back, at her black hair, styled in an intricate updo. He listened for a few seconds. Then his gaze slowly moved to her table, to Mark, who, in her absence, had buried himself in his phone again. The stranger stands completely still. His face is expressionless. He simply listens and watches. Ivy returns to the table. She sits down, trying to keep a polite smile on her face. Everything okay? Mark asks, not looking up from the screen. Yeah, just Mom, Ivy replies. She takes a spoon and picks at the melted ice cream. She looks up and sees him. A stranger. He stands in the aisle between the tables, motionless. He looks straight at Mark. His gaze is unusual. It's not angry, not aggressive. It's just very cold and very heavy, as if his gaze has physical weight. Mark feels it. He looks up from his phone. His gaze meets the stranger's. And everything changes. Mark freezes. His face turns white as paper. Literally, in a second. His mouth opens slightly, but no sound comes out. He sits, pressed against the back of the chair. His fingers unclench, and the phone falls with a thud onto the table. He doesn't even notice. Ivy looks from Mark to the stranger. She doesn't understand anything. What's going on? Do they know each other? Is this some kind of argument? The stranger doesn't look at her. He looks only at Mark. And in this silence, Ivy notices details. The stranger is young, about 27. His black hair is cut short and neat. His posture is relaxed. But in this relaxation, there is a sense of immense power, like a large predator that knows it is in no danger. She looks around. The entire room seems to fall silent. The waitress freezes with her tray. The people at the next table stop talking and glance furtively. The silence becomes loud. The stranger takes a step forward, then another. He approaches their table. He doesn't hurry. Every movement is smooth and confident. He stops right next to them. Ivy smells a faint scent of expensive cologne and fresh air. The stranger turns to Mark. His face remains calm. He neither smiles nor frowns. Sorry to disturb you, the stranger says. His voice is quiet, low, completely even. He speaks without an accent. Can you tell me your name? The question is simple and polite, but it sounds strange. It's not a question of curiosity. It's a test. Mark looks at him like a rabbit at a boa constrictor. His lips tremble. Mark, he breathes. His voice is a whisper, full of fear. Mark Talbot. The stranger nods slowly. He looks at Mark as if remembering something, or confirming something. Mark Talbot, he repeats, as if tasting the name. His tone doesn't change. Then his gaze finally breaks away from Mark. He turns his head and looks at Ivy. Everything changes. His eyes, which a second ago were like ice, now take on a different look. They become attentive, interested. He looks at her face, her hair, her dress. His gaze is appraising, but not offensive, more like admiring. As if he sees something precious before him, something that has been unworthily surrounded. Ivy feels a shiver run down her spine. She can't take her eyes off him. There's something in his gaze that makes her shut up, makes her just wait for what will happen next. The stranger stares at Ivy for several long seconds. Then his gaze returns to Mark, and once again it becomes cold and merciless. "Mark," the stranger says in the same quiet, even voice, "I have no questions for you. Bye. You're free to go." His words are calm, but there's no room for argument. It's not a proposal, it's an order. Mark doesn't even nod. He simply leaps out of his chair so quickly that it hits the floor with a clatter. He doesn't pick it up. He doesn't look at Ivy. He doesn't even pick up his phone from the table. He just turns and walks, almost runs toward the exit. He moves in a straight line, without looking back. The door of the establishment opens and closes behind him. Ivy sits there, completely stunned. She stares at the empty chair, at Mark's fallen item, at the door. Her mind refuses to comprehend what just happened. Her date simply vanished. At the polite command of a stranger, she slowly turns her head. The stranger is still standing next to her. Now he is looking only at her. The room begins to stir again. People turn away, pretending to talk. The waitress picks up a fallen chair. But Ivy feels dozens of eyes on her. The stranger takes a small step closer. Now he's standing right next to her desk. "I apologize for this intrusion," he says. His voice is a little softer as he addresses her. "My name is Minjun." Ivy doesn't know what to say. She just looks at him, her eyes wide. "I couldn't pass by," he continues. His eyes study her face carefully. "I heard you talking about how this was a disaster and how your time was too valuable." Ivy feels her cheeks burn. He heard it. He heard every piteous whisper she made. She wants to sink into the ground with shame. Minjun says, as if reading her mind, "Underscore quote, underscore zero, underscore." He pauses. His gaze becomes intense. "Quote 1, he says. It's not a question. There's no plea in his voice. There's a firm confidence, as if he's simply informing her of what's to come. "Your evening shouldn't end like this." Ivy opens her mouth to speak, to refuse, to thank him, and to leave. But the words stick in her throat. His presence, his certainty, paralyze her. It's shocking! The stranger had just driven away her companion, and now he was offering himself in return. This couldn't be happening. Ivy begins, her voice weak. "This is very unexpected. I think I should just go home." She tries to smile, collect her purse, show that she is getting up. Minjun doesn't move. He doesn't block her path, but his calm stillness feels like an insurmountable barrier. "Please," he says simply. There's no request in that word either. And then Ivy looks up a little, past his shoulder. She sees two men. They're sitting at the far table where Minjun was apparently heading. They're not looking directly at her. They're looking at Minjun, as if awaiting a command. But their postures are tense, attentive. Both are dressed in dark, simple clothes. They have serious expressions. They don't look like ordinary cafe patrons. One of them catches her eye. He doesn't smile, doesn't look away. He just stares at her for a few seconds, then looks back at Minjun. Ivy feels a cold wave of fear run through her body. This isn't just a persistent admirer. This man has an entourage, people who await his orders. Her thoughts race. Who is he? Why is Mark so afraid of him? What will happen if she says no? Will those two men get up? Will they hurt her? No, in a public place. But she doesn't want to find out. She looks at Minjun. He sees her fear. He sees that she has noticed his people. But he doesn't explain anything. He just waits. Ivy realizes she has no real choice. Refusal seems like a dangerous idea right now. And agreement, who knows what that means. But right now, at this moment, agreement feels like the only safe path. She nods slowly, barely noticeably. Once, of Minjun's lips lift. It's not a smile. It's a sign of satisfaction. "Great," he says. "Let's go. It's too stuffy in here." He steps away from the table, giving her space to stand. He waits for her to rise and grab her purse. He doesn't try to touch her, doesn't offer his hand. He simply starts walking toward the exit, assuming she'll follow. And she does. Her legs move on their own, as if they obey him. They step outside. The evening air is cool. Ivy takes a deep breath, trying to gather her thoughts. She should say something, explain that she's changed her mind, just turn around and leave. But Minjun isn't heading to the taxi stand or the subway. He's turning the corner onto a quiet side street. Where are we? Ivy begins, stopping. Quote 0, he says calmly without turning around. Quote 1. Ivy hesitates. Following a stranger into a dark street? The height of stupidity. She looks around. The cafe exit is nearby. She can just run away. And then she sees his two men also leaving the establishment. They don't follow them. They stand by the entrance, as if simply smoking. But they are looking in her direction. One of them is muttering something into his sleeve. She has no choice again. She goes after Minjun. There's a car parked on the street. It's a large, dark SUV. It looks new, expensive, and very powerful. The windows are tinted so darkly that it's impossible to see what's inside. As they approach, the front passenger door opens. The driver steps out. He's as serious and collected as the other two. He nods silently to Minjun, then opens the back door. He holds it open, standing at attention. Minjun stops at the open door and gestures for Ivy to enter. After you, he says. Ivy looks at the dark interior of the car. She looks at Minjun. She looks at the driver, who stares off into space, expressionless. Another moment of hesitation. Then she gets into the car. The soft leather seat welcomes her. The interior smells of clean leather. Minjun sits down after her. He doesn't sit next to her. He sits in the seat across from her, in the spacious car with facing seats. It's unexpected. He's not next to her, he's across from her. It's both polite and strange. The driver closes the door behind him. The sound is thick, dull. The sound of an expensive, well-built car. Then Ivy hears a quiet but distinct click. It's the sound of the central locking system. She instinctively tugs at her door handle. It doesn't open. She turns and looks at Minjun, her eyes filled with panic that she can no longer hide. Castles, she says, her voice shaking. Minjun looks at her, his face mysterious in the streetlight shining through the tinted windows. Quote 0, he says simply. Quote 1, he pauses, seeing her horror. Quote 2. The car moves smoothly. Streetlights begin to drift past the dark windows. Ivy presses her back against the door. She looks at Minjun, who sits across from her, relaxed and calm. She looks at the locked doors. She listens to the quiet rumble of the engine. She realizes she doesn't know where they're taking her. She doesn't know who this man really is. She doesn't know the rules of his game. She's simply sitting in a luxurious cage, whisking her into the unknown. And at this thought, her heart begins to beat so loudly that she thinks he should hear it. He looks at her, and in his gaze, she sees the same admiration she saw in the cafe. But now there's also an understanding of her fear in that gaze, and something akin to a promise. Relax, he says quietly as the car pulls out onto a wide avenue and picks up speed. I promise to make this evening right. I'm going to keep my word. Just trust me, for a little while. But Ivy can't relax. She's just made the most reckless move of her life, and now she's trapped. The only thing left for her to do is wait and see what happens next. The car moves smoothly through the night streets. Ivy sits motionless, her fingers digging into the soft leather of the seat. She looks out the dark window, but sees only her reflection. Wide-eyed, tense face. She feels her throat go dry. Fear makes her mouth dry. She swallows, but it doesn't help. Minjun watches her. He says nothing. Then he leans over to the small built-in refrigerator between the seats. He opens it and takes out a small glass bottle of water. The bottle is clean, with a black label. It's sealed with a branded cap. He hands the bottle to her. He holds it by the neck. You must be thirsty, he says in his calm, low voice. Take this. It's just water. Ivy looks at the bottle, then at him. This simple concern seems unreal to her in this situation. He kidnapped her, blocked the doors, and now he's offering her water, as if they're at a picnic. It confuses her. It disrupts all the scenarios her terrified brain is conjuring up. She hesitates. What if there's something in there? But the bottle is sealed. She can see that. And if he wanted to harm her, he had plenty of other ways. Carefully, as if the bottle might explode, she takes it. Her fingers touch his for a split second. His skin is warm. She quickly pulls her hand away. She unscrews the lid. The crunching sound of the seal breaking seems loud in the silence. She takes a small sip. The water is cold and clean. It quenches her thirst, but does nothing to calm her nerves. Thank you, she says quietly, not looking at him. You're welcome, he replies. He leans back in his seat. His posture is relaxed, but his eyes are attentive. He looks at her, studying her reaction. Ivy places the bottle in the cup holder. She looks out the window again, trying to figure out where they're going. The streets are getting wider, the houses are getting lower and more expensive. They're heading to the Villa District, an upscale part of the city. She decides to act. She turns to him. My address is 42 Klinovaya Street, she says firmly, although inside she's shaking. You can take me home. Now. I've changed my mind. I just want to go home. Minjun listens to her. He doesn't interrupt. His face remains calm. When she finishes, he nods slowly, as if taking her words into account. Maple, 42, he repeats. I remember. He pauses. The car turns onto an even quieter, darker alley lined with tall trees. There are no streetlights here. The headlights pick out tall fences and wrought iron gates from the darkness. Later, Minjun says softly. His voice is almost gentle, but there's no hesitation in it. First, I want to show you something beautiful. Something worth seeing. You'll regret it if you miss it out on fear. Give me 1 hour, just 1 hour. Then the driver will take you wherever you say, to Klinovaya 42, or anywhere else. I promise. Again, this isn't a request. It's a statement, but it contains a promise. A clear, measurable one. 1 hour. Ivy wants to argue, to shout that she doesn't agree, but she feels that iron will emanating from him again. She understands that arguing is futile. He doesn't ask permission. He informs. And she also feels a strange curiosity. Who is he? Where is he taking her? What is this beautiful place? Fear wars with curiosity. She says nothing. She simply looks at him, and then turns back to the window. Silence is her weak agreement. She understands it. And so does he. The car slows down and stops. In front of them are tall, massive gates made of dark wood and wrought iron. They're almost invisible in the darkness. There are no signs, numbers, or intercoms. Only a security camera above the gate, its red light shining in the night. Minjun rolls down his window. A man in a dark uniform comes out to greet him. He doesn't look like a typical security guard. He looks more professional, more attentive. Minjun speaks to him in Korean. His speech is fast and clipped. Ivy doesn't understand a word, but she hears his tone. It's a command. The guard nods without asking any questions. He casts a quick, blank glance at Ivy in the back of the car, then returns to his post. A second later, the gates begin to slide silently open. They move smoothly, powered by expensive mechanisms. The car slowly drives inside. Ivy freezes, holding her breath. A garden opens up before them. But this is no ordinary garden. It's a work of art, illuminated at night. Lanterns are everywhere, not bright electric ones, but warm, soft ones, reminiscent of old-fashioned paper lanterns. They hang from slender tree branches and line narrow stone paths. Paths lead between neatly trimmed bushes, past small ponds where the dark silhouettes of carp swim. The air is filled with the light, sweet scent of flowers she can't identify in the darkness. Somewhere, water ripples softly. It's incredibly beautiful, like a painting, like a dream. Absolute peace reigns here. The noise of the city has disappeared, leaving only the quiet song of cicadas somewhere in the grass. But with beauty comes strangeness, deaf, oppressive. Who lives in such a place? Who owns this hidden paradise in the middle of the city? Is it a private residence? A club? Something else? The car drives down the main alley and stops in front of a large, one-story building in a traditional Asian style. It's made of dark wood and paper. Warm light pours through the paper walls. The driver gets out and opens the door for Minjun. Then he walks around the car and opens the door for Ivy. The door is no longer locked. The cold night air embraces her. The air here is clean, smelling of earth and pine. Minjun is waiting for her next to the car. Let's go, he says simply, and walks along the stone path to the house. And again she follows him. The beauty of this place hypnotizes, dulling her fear. She feels as if she's in another reality. He leads her not into the main house, but along a side path, deeper into the garden. They pass a small pond with a bridge. Lanterns reflect in the black water, creating double chains of lights. He stops at a stone bench beneath a huge old tree. He gestures to the bench. Ivy sits down. He sits next to her, but at a respectful distance, close enough to talk, far enough away not to intrude on her space. The silence of the garden is oppressive, only water and cicadas. Ivy looks at him. The light from the flashlights plays across his cheekbones, his dark eyes. Her fear fades into the background, giving way to a burning curiosity and a need to understand. She takes a deep breath. "Who are you?" she asks, her voice clear in the silence. "The real question. And why was that guy Mark? Why was he so scared of you? He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Or worse." Minjun turns his head and looks at her. He's silent for a few seconds, as if considering his answer. Then an expression appears on his face. The corners of his eyes narrow slightly, and his lips stretch into a slight, barely perceptible smile. It's the first real smile she's seen on him. It changes his entire face. It makes him look younger, almost carefree, but there's a depth in his eyes that can't be hidden. "I'm a man who appreciates beauty," he says finally. His voice is quiet, so as not to disturb the magic of the garden. "Who hates when beauty is wasted? You sat there, so vibrant, so alive." And he talked about loans. It was an insult. A simple insult. He pauses, looking at the lantern swinging on a branch above them. As for his fear, he shrugs as if it's unimportant. He owed me, not money, information, which turned out to be inaccurate. He knew I'd find him sooner or later. He just didn't expect it to happen today, and in your presence, for which I apologize. His words raise even more questions. What information? Why does he need it? But Ivy doesn't have time to ask them. A man emerges from the shadows behind a tree. Ivy flinches. She hadn't heard his footsteps. He's an elderly Korean man in simple dark clothes. His face is wrinkled, but his posture is straight, almost proud. In his hands, he holds a small, dark blue silk pouch, tied with a gold cord. The old man approaches Minjun, bows respectfully, and holds out a small bag. Minjun nods, takes the bag, and quietly says something in Korean. The old man bows again, casts a quick, penetrating glance at Ivy, and disappears into the darkness of the garden as silently as he appeared. Minjun turns to Ivy, holding a silk pouch in his palm. "I took an evening from you," he says, "albeit a bad one, but I don't want you to remember only the fright and the strangeness. I want you to remember something good from this place, from me." He hands her the bag. Ivy looks at it, stunned. She slowly accepts it. The silk is soft and cool to the touch. She feels a hard object inside. "Open up," Minjun says softly. She unties the golden cord and pours the contents into her palm. A pendant rests on her skin. It's made of jade, so deep, almost emerald green, that it seems to glow from within in the lantern light. It's carved in the shape of a lotus flower, elegant, with delicate petals. A thin silver ring is attached to the chain. The workmanship is impeccable, ancient. This is clearly not modern jewelry. This is something old, precious. It's too much," Ivy whispers. She feels the weight of the gift. Not physical, but meaningful. "I can't take it." "You can," he says simply. "It's just a gift. No strings attached. The lotus. It's beautiful, even in the dirt. It's always clean. A reminder, for you." His words hang in the air. Ivy doesn't know what to say. She carefully squeezes the pendant in her palm. The stone is warm against her skin. She feels even more confused. He's giving her ancient jewelry after effectively kidnapping her. Nothing about this evening makes sense. At that moment, Minjun's phone rings. The sound is sharp, modern, alien in this quiet garden. He takes it out of his pocket. A number with no name appears on the screen. His face changes instantly. All the softness that was there a second ago disappears. His features become hard, watchful. He raises a finger in apology to Ivy, turns away, and brings the phone to his ear. "Quote 0, he says. His voice is different now. Icy, razor sharp. There's no hint of the warmth it had when he spoke to her. He listens. Ivy can't help but hear. She sits in silence, and his back tenses. "When?" he asks abruptly. A pause. "Where is he now?" Another pause. Ivy watches his free hand clench into a fist, then slowly unclench. "Control. Total control." "No," he says firmly. His voice grows quieter, but that only makes it more dangerous. The negotiations are over. He didn't reach an agreement then. He won't reach an agreement now. He got it all wrong. He listens for a few more seconds. Ivy freezes. She hears fragments of a man's voice coming from the receiver, fast and agitated, but the words are indistinct. "Okay," says Minjun. The word is a death sentence. "Take him, now, clean. Don't bring this up again, ever." He hangs up without saying goodbye. He remains motionless for a few seconds, staring into the darkness of the garden. His profile, in the light of the flashlights, seems carved from stone. Then he slowly turns to face her. He sees her face. He sees the horror in her eyes. She heard everything. The fragments were eloquent. Quote 0, quote 1, quote 2. He looks at her. His eyes are now the same as they were in the cafe when he looked at Mark. Cold. transparent, merciless. There is no attempt to hide or lie in them. The silence between them becomes dense, heavy. Ivy can't hold his gaze. She looks down at her palm, where the jade pendant still rests. The stone's beauty now seems ominous. A reminder? A reminder of what? Of him? Of what he's capable of? He sighs. The sound is quiet, but in the silence it resonates loudly. You heard, he says. It's not a question. Ivy nods without looking up. She's afraid that if she looks at him, she'll see a monster, and she doesn't want to see that. Because a minute ago, he was a man who gave beautiful gifts and talked about beautiful things. Sometimes, he begins slowly, choosing his words carefully, to protect something beautiful, you need ugly methods. To let the garden bloom in silence, sometimes you need to trim the weeds, harshly, so they don't grow back. He pauses, letting her understand the meaning. I'm no angel, Ivy, he says bluntly, looking at her. His voice is low again, but now it has a weary frankness to it. The world I live in knows no angels. It only knows rules, and consequences for those who break them. Mark broke a rule, the one the call was about. He broke a more serious rule, and now there will be consequences. That's the way things are. He leans forward a little, but doesn't get closer to her. Quote 2, he continues, as if reading her next thought. Quote 3, Ivy looks up at him. Oi. That's exactly what she thinks. Her fear is back, cold and sticky. Minjin looks at her for a long, long time. Then he speaks very quietly, almost in a whisper, but each word falls like a stone. I have only one rule for you, Ivy. Never, do you hear me? Never let anyone waste your time on the likes of Mark again. You're worth more. Everything else, he gestures with his hand, as if waving it off. Everything else is my world, and I won't let you into it further than this bench. Your rule is to protect your beauty, and my job is to make sure that rule isn't threatened, not even remotely. Understand? He doesn't ask for an answer. He simply waits for his words to sink in. Ivy sits with the jade in one hand and a chilling fear in her heart. He'd just confessed something terrible to her without uttering a single terrible word. And yet, at the same time, he'd erected an invisible wall of protection around her. She'd never felt so confused, so afraid, and so strangely important to someone who was clearly so much more than just a businessman. Minjun's words hang in the air, heavy and undeniable. Ivy clutches the jade lotus in her palm. The stone feels icy, though it should be warmed by her skin. She needs to do something, some action, to regain some semblance of control. The thought of her friend, of a normal world, feels like salvation. I need to call, she says, her voice shaking. My friend, I should have called her last night. She'll be worried. She tries to sound confident, as if this is a casual request. She opens her small purse and feels inside for the familiar rectangular phone. It's gone. She frowns, peering inside. A makeup bag, keys, a wallet. No phone. Her heart stops. She shakes everything out onto the stone bench. Nothing, just her things, laid out under the soft light of the flashlights. Panic, cold and sharp, pierces her. She looks up at Minjun. He's watching her, calmly. His face is expressionless, but she sees understanding in his eyes. He knew she wouldn't find the phone. My phone, she breathes out. It's gone. It was in my purse. I put it there at the cafe. He's not lost, Minjun says, his tone even and businesslike. Where is he? Ivy's voice breaks. She jumps up from the bench, leaving her things lying around. Quote 1. Minjun doesn't move. He looks up at her, his calm a stark contrast to her hysteria. He's safe, in the car. The driver is looking after him, he says, as if reporting the weather forecast. Give it to me! Now! Ivy takes a step toward him. Her hands are clenched into fists. Fear turns to anger. This is her connection to the world. Minjun rises slowly. He's not much taller than her, but his presence seems enormous. No, he says simply. For one night, he'll stay in the car. She almost screams. I do, he replies. For the first time, there's a steely edge to his voice. Not malice, but cold, unshakable confidence. For your own safety, Ivy. You're in my place. You've seen my face. You've heard my conversation. I can't risk anyone tracking the signal or taking a random photo. It's a standard precaution. Nothing personal. Quote 5, she says, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. From helplessness. I've got it safe, just like you, he corrects. Tomorrow morning, when the driver takes you home, he'll return your phone to you. personally, safe and sound, and fully charged. That's my promise. He speaks without apology. He explains the rules like an adult explains to a child why they shouldn't touch a hot stove. It's not up for discussion. Ivy realizes there's no point in fighting. She stands before him, trembling with rage and fear. Her last link to the outside world has been taken away. She's completely at his mercy. She's trapped in this beautiful, terrifying garden. Minjun watches a tear roll down her cheek. He makes no attempt to wipe it away or console her. He simply waits for the initial wave of emotion to pass. "Let's go," he says finally, his voice neutral again. "You should be hungry, and bad decisions often come on an empty stomach." He turns and walks down the path toward the main building. Ivy, devastated, automatically picks up her things from the bench, slips the jade into her dress pocket, and follows him. What else can she do? He leads her not into the large house, but into a small, private pavilion on stilts above one of the ponds. Inside, there's a low, dark wood table, surrounded by cushions on the floor. The paper walls are pulled back, revealing a view of the Wadesh and the garden. Everything is simple, elegant, and incredibly expensive looking. As soon as they enter, two women in identical, simple kimonos appear. They bow silently, their faces impassive. They begin serving them. One brings a hot towel on a wooden stand. The other sets out small ceramic bowls and plates. The food arrives without a menu. Small portions of exquisite dishes that Ivy can't name. Some with fish, some with delicate vegetables. A clear soup. Everything looks like art. The flavor is incredible, subtle. Minjun doesn't speak. He eats slowly, with visible pleasure, but without unnecessary emotion. He pours her a drink from a small clay jug. It's warm sake. He pours himself some. "This isn't store-bought," he says finally, taking a small sip. "They make it especially for this place." Notice the aftertaste. Ivy drinks. The drink is smooth, slightly sweet. It's beautiful, and that terrifies her even more. Everything here, the food, the drink, the decor, speaks of unimaginable wealth, power, and taste. This isn't ostentatious luxury. This is deep, ingrained tradition and control over every aspect of life. The quiet confidence that the best is already yours. He starts talking about sake, about how it's made, about the different types of rice. His knowledge is encyclopedic. He talks about wines, comparing them. He speaks calmly, enthusiastically, as if they were on a regular gourmet date. Ivy barely hears. She eats mechanically. She looks at his hands, so elegantly holding the cup, at the hands that an hour ago were giving orders to underscore, quote underscore to, underscore someone. This normality, this civilized conversation against the backdrop of everything that has happened, drives her crazy. Who is this man who can switch gears so easily? They finish eating. The women quietly clear away the dishes. Tea is brought in a small cast-iron teapot. The scent of cherry blossoms fills the air. Minjun pours tea into two tiny cups. "You're still scared," he states, looking at her through the steam rising from the tea. Ivy doesn't answer. What can she say? "Let's play," he suggests unexpectedly. "A game. A simple one. We ask each other one honest question. An honest answer is mandatory. If you don't want to answer, say pass, and the question is lost. But then you won't be able to ask your own. Fair enough?" It's a trap. Ivy knows it. But it's also an opportunity, a chance to learn something, to gain some information. She nods slowly. "Okay." He takes a sip of tea and puts down the cup. "I'll begin," he says. His eyes are fixed on her face. "What are you most afraid of right now, at this very second? Not in general, but here, with me." The question is as direct as a blow. It knocks the last of her protective shell out of her. Ivy stares into her cup. Steam tickles her face. She considers passing, but that would be cowardly, and she wants to ask him her question. She needs an answer. She looks up at him. His gaze is firm, expectant. He demands the truth. "Not knowing," she breathes out. The word escapes her. "I'm afraid of not knowing. I don't know who you really are. I don't know the rules of your game. I don't know what your words mean. I don't know what happened to that person from the call. I don't know why you're doing this to me. I don't know what will happen in an hour. I don't know if I'll see my phone. I'm in complete darkness. And this is worse than if I knew something bad, because my mind paints pictures that are probably worse than reality. That's what I fear most of all. Darkness. Not knowing." She falls silent, out of breath. She said too much. But it was the truth, the whole truth. Minjun listens without moving. His face doesn't change. He simply absorbs her words. Silence falls. The sound of fish splashing in the pond beyond the pavilion wall can be heard. Good answer, Minjin finally says. Honest! Now it's your turn to ask a question. Ivy is ready. She already has a question. The big one. What are you going to do to me? She asks. Straight up, without embellishment. Minjin nods as if he expected this. I already told you, it's okay, he replies. I won't harm you, physically or otherwise. You've been under my protection since the moment I walked up to your table. That won't change until you're home tomorrow morning. He pauses, takes a sip of tea. But you're right about not knowing. And I'll make you one more promise. Some things you shouldn't know. It's not because I don't trust you. It's because that knowledge is like poison. It attracts trouble. It makes you a target. My job is to shield you from my world, and the best way to do that is to keep you ignorant of its details. Your ignorance is your best defense. Understand? He looks at her, checking to see if she understands the seriousness of his words. I'm no angel, he repeats, but I'm not a monster who harms the innocent either. To me, you are a beautiful misunderstanding, an accident that I decided to correct, and I will correct it completely by bringing you home safe and sound. Anything beyond that, leave it to me, and try to forget. His words sound convincing. They have their own twisted logic. Ivy wants to believe, desperately wants to believe that everything will end well. Why? She blurts out the next question, even though her turn has passed. Why did you even do that? Why didn't you just walk by? Minjin doesn't scold her for asking too much. He looks thoughtfully into the dark garden. I have a younger sister, he begins unexpectedly. His voice changes, softer, warmer. When she was about 16, she went on a date with a boy who everyone thought was a good boy. He acted like a prince in public, but in private, he laughed at her dreams, said she wanted too much, killed the spark inside her, drop by drop. He is silent, remembering. I saw her crying. I found out the reason. I was young and passionate then. I found this boy. I didn't touch him. I simply talked to him. I explained what an honor it was for him to spend time with my sister, and how much it would cost him if he made her pay for his attention with tears again. He raises his hand to adjust the cuff of his shirt. As he does, the cuff slides up, just a centimeter, but Ivy sees it, sees a pale, rough scar. It runs up the inside of his wrist, under his sleeve, an old scar, stitched unevenly, a scar that clearly wasn't the result of an accidental cut. Minjin catches her eye. He takes his time adjusting his cuff. He lets her examine it. Then he slowly fastens it, hiding the scar. He never called her again. Minjun finishes his story. His voice becomes neutral again. And she grew up and married a man who sees the sun in her. Sometimes, to protect something fragile and beautiful, you have to show your teeth, even if it means getting a scar. He says this without pride, without regret. As a statement of fact, Ivy looks at his arm, where the cuff line is now smooth. This scar, this story about his sister, they make him human. Dangerous, but human. There's a terrible appeal to it. Ivy sips her tea, trying to process everything she's heard. Her gaze wanders to the garden, beyond the open wall of the pavilion. Lanterns create islands of light in a sea of blackness, and in these islands, something moves. At first, she thinks it's a trick of light and shadow, or an animal. But no, a silhouette flickers in the darkness between the trees. A human silhouette. It freezes as soon as she looks straight ahead. Then another movement from the other side of the pond. A shadow glides from one tree to another, merging with the darkness. They're not alone. There are other people in the garden. Guards, caretakers. Whoever it is, they're watching. The garden or them. Ivy feels a shiver run down her spine. She remembers the two men from the cafe, the driver, the old man with the gift, the silent women. This garden isn't just beautiful. It's guarded. Every inch of it is watched. And here she is, in the center of it all, with her jade souvenir and an empty pocket where her phone should be. She glances at Minjin. He watches her look into the garden. He sees that she has noticed. __0_, he says quietly, as if reading her thoughts. Quote 1. But Ivy understands something else. These shadows in the darkness aren't just protection. They're a reminder that she's inside something vast, complex, and completely controlled, that her every move is possibly being watched and analyzed, that her safety is also a form of confinement. She looks away from the darkness and back at him, at the man with the scar on his hand and the warm memories of his sister, at the man who rules this hidden nocturnal world, fear gives way to a strange, chilling realization. She's caught in the sights of a power she never even suspected, and now, whether she likes it or not, she's part of this picture, at least for one night. They sit in silence. Ivy watches the steam from her tea, trying not to look into the dark garden where shadows lurk. Minjin seems lost in his thoughts. This illusory pause, this calm, suddenly explodes. A man enters the garden with quick, almost silent steps, the same one who was one of the two in the cafe. He looks nervous, his face tense. He doesn't look at Ivy. He immediately heads toward Minjin, leans in, and begins speaking rapidly in Korean. His speech is quiet but abrupt, full of urgency. Minjin listens. At first, his face is expressionless. Then it becomes hard, stony. All the softness, all the hints of humanity that were there a moment ago evaporate. His eyes narrow, becoming slits. He looks like a predator who has caught the scent of blood. He nods once, sharply. The man bows and just as quickly disappears into the darkness. Minjin rises slowly. He looks at Ivy, and there's no apology in his gaze, only cold necessity. "Sorry," he says. His voice is icy and businesslike again. "There's a minor issue at one of the facilities. I need 5 minutes. No more." He doesn't explain what the problem is. He doesn't ask if she understands. He simply informs. He glances around, as if searching for somewhere to put her for these 5 minutes. His gaze falls on a small wooden house, standing slightly off to the side of the main pavilion, almost at the garden wall. It looks like a garden shed or a tool shed, but is built in the same elegant style. "Wait for me there, please," he says, pointing to the house. "It's warmer there. I'll be quick." And without waiting for an answer, he turns and walks quickly down the path to the other side of the garden, where his man has disappeared. He disappears around the bend. Ivy is left alone. She sits at the table, feeling the chill of the night air. 5 minutes. She could just sit here, but he said to go inside. Disobeying his request seems like a bad idea. She slowly gets up and walks toward the small house. The door isn't fully closed. It's ajar, a few centimeters. A dim, bluish light spills from the crack, unlike the warm glow of the flashlights. Ivy comes up and peers inside through the crack, and freezes. This isn't a barn. There's a table inside. On the table are several flat-screen monitors. Black and white images flicker across the screens. She sees views of the garden from different angles. She sees the gate, but she also sees other images. Streets, familiar and not so familiar. Entrances to buildings, deserted parking lots. This is a surveillance room, a control center. Ivy's heart starts to beat faster. He sent her here. An accident? Or a test? To go inside would mean seeing something she definitely shouldn't see, to see the extent of his control, perhaps to see something she should never see, but staying outside in the cold air when he clearly told her to come inside to warm up, that might arouse suspicion. Maybe he was deliberately giving her this choice? To see how she would react? To test her curiosity and obedience? She stands there, paralyzed by indecision. 5 minutes. 2 must have passed already. From the darkness of the garden comes a muffled male voice, then another. They are close. Minjin will be back any second. Curiosity mixes with fear and wins. She needs to know, at least out of the corner of her eye. She carefully pushes the door. It opens silently. Ivy steps inside. The air smells of plastic and electronic dust. She looks around. The room is small. A desk with monitors and a chair. On the desk next to the keyboard lies an open folder. Some papers are tucked inside. And on top of the papers lies a photograph. Ivy can't tear her eyes away. She takes another step, bends down. The photograph shows her house. Not just any street, specifically her house, that very apartment at 42 Klenovaya Street. The photo is clear, as if it were taken recently, during the day. You can see her balcony and the windows of her living room. The blood pounded in her temples. All sounds disappeared. He was following her, even before they met at the cafe. He knew where she lived. He, or his people, took a photo of her house. A precautionary measure after their meeting? No. The photo is in a folder with other papers. It looks like part of some dossier. That was before. So, when he approached her table, he already knew where she lived. How is that possible? Thoughts are racing. Maybe this isn't her house. Maybe it's a coincidence. But no, she recognizes her own. Windows, her balcony with 2 pots of geraniums, which she never replanted. So all of this wasn't an accident? His appearance, his underscore, quote, underscore 0 underscore, was it planned? But how? Why? A cold dread, far deeper than any fear she'd ever known, enveloped her. She wasn't a random find. She was a target? Or part of something? She hears footsteps on the gravel outside the door. Quick, approaching. Ivy sits up abruptly. She wants to run away from the table, to pretend she just walked in and is standing at the threshold, but her legs won't obey her. She simply freezes, staring at the door. The door opens. Minjun stands in the doorway. His face is unreadable. He sees her, sees where she stands, sees her gaze, full of horror. His eyes slowly move to the table, to the open folder, to the photograph. The silence in the room is oppressive, only the quiet hum of the computers. "It's not what you think," he says finally, his voice quiet, emotionless. Ivy can't utter a word. "It was a precaution," he continues, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. Now they're trapped in this small room. But not after. Before. He walks over to the table and picks up a photograph. He looks at it, then at Ivy. "When I overheard your conversation in the cafe, I did two things. First, I found out who your pathetic companion was. Second, I signaled to find out who you were, where you lived. That's standard. Before approaching anyone, even with the best of intentions, I have to know who I'm dealing with, to protect myself, and to protect you from any wrong associations. I had to be sure you weren't associated with undesirable elements." He puts the photo back into the folder and closes it. "It took me 3 minutes to get to your table. My people are efficient. The photo of your house is simply proof of address. Nothing more. No one has been following you before. No one has intruded into your life. This is simply a check, a cold, quick check, like an X-ray at an airport. Impersonal." He looks at her, trying to figure out if she believes a word of it. Ivy listens. Her mind refuses to process it. 3 minutes, eh? Efficient people. The standard. His world, his rules, his efficiency. It's all alien, frightening, and too powerful. Oh, she can't take it anymore. She can't be part of this game, these tests, this garden of shadows and rooms with monitors. She feels like if she doesn't leave now, right this second, she'll go crazy. "I want to go home," she says. Her voice is hoarse but firm. "Now. Immediately. Forget about the hour. Take your gift. Just take me home." She expects anger, expects him to remind her of their agreement, expects the doors to be locked and the shadows in the garden to become real people who won't let her leave. She's ready to fight, ready to scream, to struggle. Minjun looks at her with a long, searching gaze. He sees in her eyes not just fear but a limit, the line beyond which a person breaks. He nods slowly, once. "As you wish," he says quietly. There's no anger or disappointment in his voice. There's a kind of tired resignation. He opens the door and gestures for her to come out. "Let's go." He doesn't try to lead her. He simply walks ahead along the path to the gate. Ivy follows him, her legs shaking. She keeps glancing back, expecting people to jump out of the darkness and stop her, but nothing happens. The garden is silent and empty. The shadows are still. A driver stands at the gate next to an SUV. Minjun says something to him in Korean. The driver nods and opens the car door. Before sitting down, Minjun turns to Ivy. "Wait a second." He approaches the driver, who hands him something. Minjun returns to Ivy and hands her the object. It's her phone. "As I promised," he says. "Just a little earlier." Ivy grabs the phone. She almost can't believe she's holding it. She presses the button. The screen lights up, full charge. No new messages or missed calls that shouldn't be there. Everything is as it was. They get into the car. Minjun is opposite her again. The doors close. The sound of the lock doesn't seem so terrible now, because she knows he's taking her home. The car starts moving and drives out of the gates, which close silently behind them. They are back in the city, surrounded by lights and traffic. The silence in the car is oppressive. Ivy doesn't look at Minjun. She looks out the window but doesn't see the streets. She sees only a photograph of her house on the table in that room. She feels the phone in her hand. It's intact, but it now feels foreign. She understands that her life, her address, her routine, all of it can be collected, analyzed, and filed away in 3 minutes. This feeling of total transparency never leaves her. He took more than just the evening from her. He took away her sense of security in her own invisibility. She now knows that people like him exist, and that they can see whatever they want. The car stops at a familiar entrance. Klenovaya Street, 42. Everything is as usual. The streetlight is on. A television is glowing in the window on the first floor. The driver gets out and opens the door for Minjun. Then he walks around and opens the door for Ivy. She steps out onto the sidewalk. The night air of her neighborhood smells different, simpler, poorer. Minjun follows her out. He stands next to her looking at her entrance, then at her. "Thank you for this evening, Ivy," he says. His voice is soft again, almost regretful. "It was unforgettable. For me, anyway. I hope it wasn't just scary for you." He doesn't try to shake her hand, hug her, or kiss her on the cheek. He keeps his distance. Ivy just nods. She wants to say, "0 for letting her go," but the words won't come. She wants to scream at him for everything he's done, but she's too exhausted. "Just don't call me, okay?" she says instead, clutching the phone. He almost smiles. "I won't. Unless you want me to, but I doubt it." He takes a step back, about to leave, but then he stops, as if remembering something. He reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a small, flat object. It's a black token, the size of a $2 coin. It's matte, heavy, and cool. Its surface is engraved with a thin, almost invisible silver design, the same lotus as the jade pendant. Minjin takes her hand, pries her fingers open, still clutching the phone, and places the token in her palm. "0, he says seriously, looking into her eyes. 1. He closes her fingers over the token. 2. Or just show your badge. You'll be taken to me, or my people will help you. Any problem. Any." He pauses, making sure she understands the seriousness of his words. "This isn't an invitation. It's an emergency exit. Forget it exists. But don't lose it." He lets go of her hand. The token lies in her palm, cold and heavy. "Good night, Ivy," he says one last time. Then he turns and gets into the car. The door closes. The dark SUV smoothly pulls away from the curb, merges with the flow of traffic, and disappears around the corner. Ivy stands alone under a lamppost, with a phone in one hand and a black badge in the other. Sleep doesn't come for a long time. Ivy lies in her bed, in her room, staring at the ceiling. She checks her phone every 5 minutes. Nothing. No calls, no messages. Everything seems to have frozen. When she finally falls asleep, her dreams are fitful, full of images. Flashlights in the dark, Minjun's cold eyes, black and white images on monitors. Morning comes with a gray light through the window. Ivy wakes to the sound of a garbage truck outside. Her first thought, it was a dream. A wild, unreal, nightmarish dream. She sits up in bed, runs her hand over her face, and her gaze falls on the bedside table. There are 2 objects lying on a wooden surface, next to each other, a jade pendant in the shape of a lotus. The green stone catches the morning light and glows softly, and a black matte token with a silver pattern. They are real. They are here. This all happened for real. She slowly reaches for her phone, which has spent the night charging. She turns it on. No missed calls, no messages. One new message, from an unknown number, arrived at 4:17 a.m. She opens it. The text is short, without punctuation, as if it was typed quickly. 0. Ivy looks up at her window. At the familiar street, at the blue morning sky. Everything looks the same, but she knows it's not. Nothing will ever be the same again, because now she knows there's a world beyond the mirror, and in that world, she has the jade flower and the black coin, and a promise of safety from a man named Minjun. That sounds both like a threat and like the strangest comfort she's ever received. Ivy sits on the edge of the bed, unable to tear her eyes away from these 2 objects. She clutches the phone in her hand so tightly that her fingers turn white. The message is still flashing on the screen. M. She jumps up and runs to the window. She throws it open. The morning air smells of coffee and exhaust fumes. Across the street, in the window of the neighboring house, a woman is watering flowers on the balcony. Downstairs, a guy is walking his dog. Everything is as usual. Nothing has changed. But the message says otherwise. It will always be safe outside your window. What does that mean? Is it a threat? Did he put guards there? Or are these just words to keep her from being afraid? Ivy slams the window shut and pulls back the curtain. She suddenly feels like she's being watched. She walks around the apartment, checking the locks on the doors, looking in closets, under the bed. It's stupid, but she can't stop. The feeling that her life is an open book doesn't go away. She returns to the bedroom. Her gaze is drawn again to the jade lotus. She takes it. The stone is smooth, cold, so that you remember more than just the fear. She tosses it back onto the nightstand as if it burns. She doesn't want to remember anything. The black dog tag lies nearby. It looks alien in her cozy room. 2. An exit to a world she never wants to return to. She wants to throw it away. Throw it away right now. But her hand won't obey. What if? No. There will be no what ifs. She tucks the dog tag into the far corner of the nightstand drawer, under a pile of old magazines. Out of sight. Phone. She deletes the message, deletes the number. She blocks calls from unknown numbers. For a moment, she feels better, as if she's erased the very fact of his existence. But it's an illusion. It can't erase memory. She takes a shower, a very long, very hot one. She scrubs her skin with a washcloth, as if she can wash away the entire evening, the scent of his cologne, the feel of the tinted windows of the car. The water feels clean, but the feeling of pollution doesn't go away. She gets dressed. Simple jeans, a t-shirt. No dress, no complicated hairstyle. She looks in the mirror. She looks tired. There are shadows under her eyes, but something has changed deep in her eyes. A wariness has appeared, one that wasn't there before. She leaves the house, goes to work. Every step seems loud. She looks around. No one is following her, just ordinary people. But now she notices details. The Korean hair salon on the corner, which she hadn't noticed before. The Korean restaurant across the street. She remembers his words. Show any Korean in Chinatown. So there are a lot of them here. And could they be his eyes and ears? A paranoid thought. She pushes it away. Everything is business as usual at work. Coworkers are discussing last night's TV shows. The boss is giving an assignment. Ivy tries to immerse herself in the routine, the numbers on the computer screen, but her thoughts return to him, to his calm voice, to his scar, to the photograph of her house. Lunch break. She's sitting in a cafe with her friend Lisa. Lisa asks how yesterday's date went. Ivy freezes. What should she say? The truth? Nothing. It was boring. We broke up. Lisa has had enough. She starts telling me about her new crush. Ivy listens with half an ear, thinking about Minjin. He's doing his own thing right now, solving his quote zero giving orders. Maybe right now someone is paying for breaking the quote one. She shudders. Are you okay? Lisa asks. You look so pale. Ivy lies. And she feels like a traitor to a normal life, where dates are just boring, not ending in a secret garden. The entire day passes in this duality. On the outside, she's ordinary Ivy. On the inside, she's Ivy, who's been to the other side of the mirror and can't forget what she saw there. She returns home in the evening. She checks the mailbox. Nothing unusual. She goes up to the apartment. The lock clicks as usual. She turns on the light and freezes. There's a vase on the kitchen table. It contains a branch of blossoming sakura. Delicate, pink, incredibly beautiful. It definitely wasn't there this morning. Ivy approaches slowly, as if to a mine. The vase is simple, ceramic. No note, nothing, just a branch. The scent is subtle, sweet. Where from? She didn't open the door to anyone. The windows are closed. That means someone has a key, or someone got in without breaking the locks. Panic grips her with renewed vigor. She grabs her phone to call the police, but her fingers hover over the screen. What will she say? Did someone give me flowers? That's not a crime. Quote 4. There's no sign of forced entry. They'll ask if she has any enemies. And what will she answer? Yes, the Korean Mafia boss I spent last night with. She lowers the phone. She approaches the vase, carefully touches the petals. They are real, fresh. So they were brought today. This is him. This is Minjin. This is his message. Silent. I remember you. Or, I can come into your life whenever I want. It's no longer a promise of safety. It's a show of power. A quiet, graceful reminder that the distance she tried to establish by erasing the number and hiding the badge is illusory. Ivy doesn't know what to do with the flowers. Throw them away? But that seems like it would anger him. Keep them? That would mean accepting this sign, this intrusion. In the end, she leaves the vase on the table. The flowers are too beautiful to destroy. And there's something sinister in their beauty. The night gets even worse. Every rustle in the apartment makes her jump. She lies awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the black token in the drawer. It lies there, cold and heavy, like an accusation. Like a door she's afraid to open, but can't quite close. In the morning, the cherry blossoms look just as fresh. Ivy avoids them. She gets ready for work, feeling drained. She pauses at the threshold. She returns to the bedroom, opens the nightstand drawer, and scatters the magazines. The black token lies where she left it. She picks it up. It's still as cold as ever. She doesn't want to take it, but she can't leave it here. She can't leave it at home, near her. What if it's emitting something? What if it can be tracked? It's stupid, but the fear is irrational. She puts the token in the farthest pocket of her bag so that it would be with her, so that she could control it. Or so that it would control her? Work is going wrong again. In the middle of the day, her phone vibrates. An unknown number. The same as yesterday? She didn't save it, but it seems so. She doesn't answer. The call repeats. Her colleagues are already looking at her. She runs out into the hallway, presses answer, but doesn't say a word. Hello! A voice sounds on the phone. Low, calm. Not his, someone else's, with an accent. Is this Ivy? Who is this? She blurts out. Quote, me? Ivy leans against the cold wall, her head spinning. Tell him to leave me alone, she squeezes out. I don't want his flowers. I don't want his calls. There's silence on the other end of the line. Then the voice speaks with the same neutral politeness. I'll pass it on. He also asked me to tell you that the cherry blossom branch is just blooming, and in a week it will wither, and nothing else will appear. It was just a token of consideration, so you wouldn't think all was forgotten. But now, all is forgotten, if that's what you want. And the connection is broken. Ivy stands in the hallway, clutching her phone to her chest. Just a token. So she wouldn't think she'd forgotten, so he knew she'd be afraid. He knew she'd try to erase it all. And he sent flowers to remind her. It can't be erased. But there won't be a continuation. Not if that's what she wants. It wasn't a show of force. It was a farewell. A strange, twisted farewell, but a farewell nonetheless. The branch will wither, and nothing more will appear. She returns to her desk. This time her hands don't shake. Something inside her has calmed. It hasn't gotten any easier, but it has become clearer. He's made his final remark. Now it's her turn. She can accept his rules. He leaves, leaving the door ajar. A black token in her bag. Or she can slam it shut forever. She comes home in the evening. The cherry blossom on the table now seems simply a beautiful flower. There is no thread in it. There is only memory. A bitter, strange, frightening memory. She walks over to the table, sits down, and looks at the branch. She thinks of his face when he talked about his sister, of his icy voice on the phone, of his firm promise not to harm her. She opens her bag and pulls out a black token. She places it on the table next to the vase. Two objects from the same evening. Two reminders of the same person. She doesn't know who he really is. She doesn't want to know, but she knows he kept all his promises. He brought her home. He returned her phone. He sent flowers as his last words. And he left her a token, a strange, terrifying key to a world she never has to return to. She takes the token. It's still just as cold. She opens the desk drawer where old bills, pens, and paper clips lie. She places the token at the very bottom and closes the drawer. Let it lie there. She won't throw it away, but she won't use it either. This is her compromise with the reality that now includes Minjun. She accepts the fact that he exists somewhere out there, in a parallel world, but she won't let him go beyond her desk drawer. She looks at the cherry blossom. In a week, it will wither. Ivy will throw it away, and everything will go back to normal. Almost. She approaches the window. The evening lights are coming on. She knows that beyond this window, perhaps, nothing has changed. No guards, just the city. But now she looks at it with different eyes. She knows that behind the facade of ordinary life, there are other worlds, and in one of them, there is the man who once saved her from a boring date and gave her an unforgettable night, a night of fear, beauty, and strange, dangerous care. Ivy moves away from the window. She goes to the kitchen to make dinner, an ordinary dinner in her ordinary life, but somewhere deep down, at the very bottom, a glimmer of understanding glimmers. Her life has been divided into quote 0 and quote 1. The quote 2 is quieter, more wary, but also broader, because now she knows the world isn't limited to her street and office. It's vast, complex, and full of shadows. And one of those shadows once, for one night, took the form of a man named Minjun and gave her a jade lotus and a black token, which she will treasure, like a ticket from a strange, terrifying dream that for some reason she doesn't want to completely forget.